Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is returning guest Bob Baldocchi of On3, and we are going to revisit e-commerce, this time more specifically looking at how you can incorporate that into your retail business, or even as a small owner-operator like myself that does do a little bit of retail. How do we incorporate it into our business and really start getting a bigger presence online to draw in more business? Cash and carry sales can really move the bottom line for you. That's one reason why I want to have the conversation. But just in general, I think that having that e-commerce presence is going to draw in more potential clientele for you so that you can close more deals, more leads. You should close more things. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Ladecrete International Service Event, Johns Manville. For over 65 years, Ladecrete has been a leading manufacturer of products and systems covering tile and stone installation, masonry veneer installation, resinous and decorative floor finishes, concrete construction chemicals, and concrete restoration. They offer an array of low VOC and sustainable products. Their products contribute to LEED certification, exceed commercial and residential VOC building requirements, and are backed by the most comprehensive warranties in the industry. For more information on Ladecrete and the products they offer, visit ladecrete.com. And I want to let you know that Floor Academy is here every Wednesday with a new episode to help you take you from owning a job to owning an asset. All of these conversations that happen weekly are geared towards being able to take small bite-sized steps to implement new systems and processes into your business so that you can grow it and run it more effectively. With all that being said, Bob, thank you for coming back, joining us again. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
So, Bob Baldocchi, with On3, and On3 is it's a micro media platform that basically has created training for frontline construction workers. And so what we're doing is we're taking every process of the house, the build. We're helping construction managers at large builders, small builders, medium-sized builders take their workforce through a learning process that enables them to kind of recognize right and wrong during the construction process. And it's been a fun journey. I did that. I started this about a year ago. And prior to that, I was 15 years with Emser Tile as their CMO and head of business development. And then prior to that, I was kind of a brand and marketing guy with places like Disney and Seiko. And I've always just kind of been in the front of sales and marketing with consumer products, and love this industry. And kind of after I retired from Emser, kind of jumped back into it with On3.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd go back, listen to the other e-commerce episode we did. Bob and I have a great discussion about story and how that incorporates into helping you sell your products. His time at Disney really helped him understand what it means to connect with an audience, as opposed to, being that door-to-door salesman that just crams a product down your throat. That's only going to get you so far, right? If you can connect with the audience and help them understand how you solve their problem and fulfill their need through storytelling, you are much more likely to go with that contractor or service over somebody else. So that was a really great discussion. Like I said, and so when you were with Emser, you actually helped them build out their online presence and kind of the whole website and how products were on it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm interested in, is everyone knows, you got to have a website these days. And surprisingly, there's still contractors that are like, I don't need a website. Word of mouth. And word of mouth is great, but how do you go beyond just staying busy enough for you, right? So now we need a bigger presence. And so you'll have that website and it just says, we do X, Y, and Z. Great. What products do you have? Who do you use? Who are you partnered with, right? So I think, is that where this all kind of starts? Is that where you started when you were with Emser, of like, this is very basic who we have and what we have, and we can start building it out from there?
Yeah, I mean, our path at Emser was definitely interesting, because when I started, it was almost 17 years ago now when we were first there. I mean, the concept of e-commerce was really infant. It was really at an infant stage. I mean, there really wasn't much going on in terms of people selling on retail, selling online. But what people had was they had website presence, where they had their own website prop up, and it was really more of a marketing play and thing. So when I got to Emser, there was no website. We had a landing page where you went to emser.com and popped the landing page and kind of said who we were, where we were located, but it had really nothing going on. So one of the first things I did there was we actually developed a marketing site, and the marketing site was really about all the products that we developed and carried and sold and brought into the marketplace, where we are located, our service, and just kind of our story, like who were we, how could you find us, who did we service, etc. And for a lot of companies, that marketing site is what they end up doing. They start there. They have that marketing site, which kind of tells a little bit about them as a company. Eventually, if you want to make that transition just from a marketing site where you're just telling your story to an actual selling site, it's a very different proposition in terms of what you're doing there. And so at Emser, we never went to the selling site. We were as a wholesale brand selling to commercial contractors and builders and retailers and e-commerce platforms and mass merchants. We weren't really looking to set up a competing site selling products. We were looking there to be supportive of our end customers.
Yeah.
So for us, it was always a marketing play. But we did want to have an e-commerce presence through some of our supporting partners, and then that comes into a play with how do you help them set up their sites to present your brand and then bring those products to market in the most compelling way. And so we had a lot of dialogue about that, and early on in the history of it was there are a lot of sites out there that were, I'll call them disruptors, but not disruptor in the positive way that you'll kind of see maybe an Uber, which is like, a disruptor, or Airbnb, which is a disruptor. These places are, I think, in some ways very positive, but the disruptors we had in the flooring space back then were, I don't think, very positive, and they really weren't something we wanted to support. So we actually had to balance that and try to figure out how to be good to our core customers while at the same time managing this presence online that we wanted to get our products out there as well. So it was a tricky balance, a good 10 years ago. Today it gets a little bit easier, and there's a little bit more of a clear path. But back then in the early days, it was a little tricky, to manage through it and keep everybody happy.
Well, so with what you just said, it sounds like we really need to go back and just have basic definitions of what we're trying to do within this space, right? So that marketing aspect of it is still very important, and we want to make sure that we're putting out what we do and how we can help service people, whether we're if you're a distributor and you're partnering with other people to be, the wholesaler, right? And you can get this stuff out. So I can partner with you, and here's how I solve your problem. I can get you product, whether you're here or whether you're across the country, right? I have hubs everywhere for you to be able to pick something up at. And so you're getting that message out, so local flooring shops can now, they have their website, they have their presence. And then we can start building out, how do we work with the products we have to actually get them more in front of people? And one of the things that's come up recently, which you know about, is the visualizers are okay. So now I can see the flooring without even having to come down to the showroom. I take a picture, I upload it, and bam, it's in my space. And it's a great representation. It's not perfect, and that's okay, right? It's better than nothing and having to run out and grab a sample and come back. At least this way I can start limiting it down to colors or something like that, because otherwise you put 800 options in front of me and I'm overwhelmed. Like, how do I even choose? So what are we looking to build out once we have these partnerships in place, right? Whether I'm with the big majors or I'm working with the local distributors in my area that may carry some smaller brands. I have access to flooring, but now what am I doing to try and build out this site to gain the presence, or at least not even the presence, but like the traffic that's there, right? People are searching for it, but how do I get them to come to me as opposed to anywhere else that they're going?
Well, again, it all starts with, you're trying to figure out what are you trying to accomplish, right? At the end of the day, before you embark upon an online strategy, whether it's social, whether it's a website, whether it's e-commerce, you've got to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish before you even embark on the project,
Mm-hmm.
because you can just start and just and throw a bunch of things up against the wall with no real purpose, and you're going to have 10, 15 projects, you know, going, and none of them are going to come to completion because you really didn't have a path. So really, the first thing you want to do is really create a path in terms of what it is you're trying to accomplish. If you're a local player in a marketplace and what you're trying to do is get more eyes to your business because you think you've got a really good story to tell, and you can basically get consumers to come to you and use your services. In the flooring space, which it could mean selection, it could mean installation, it could mean I'm a countertop specialist. Everyone's got their story as a small player, or
Mm-hmm.
even medium or large player. And what you're trying to do is basically put a presence out there that says, this is what I'm trying to communicate. And then once you kind of understand what you're trying to accomplish there in terms of getting a message out, then you want to figure out what that call to action is going to be in terms of, when they get there and they see you, what do you want them to do with that information? Do you want them to make a purchase right there? Do you want them to come in? Do you want them to make a phone call? Do you want them to inquire? What do you really want them to kind of do once they get to your site or they get to your presence, whether it's, like I said, it's a Facebook page or Instagram presence or whatever? What do you want them to do once they see your stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of players, what's important for them is they just want people to pick up the phone and call them and be like, I liked what I saw. I need a contractor. I'm looking for somebody to do some installation because that's what their specialty is. Or, hey, I saw that you got this great selection online. Where can I see that in person? And I've got a retail location, so please come on in and let's take a look at it. We'll take care of you. Or it's hey, it's all here for you, ready to go. All you got to do is click a couple buttons and you can actually transact with me, and I'll ship this stuff out to you. And not only that, once you get that order in, I can even do the installation for you too. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to figure out what that path is for your business, and everybody's path is different. And it's really important that businesses understand kind of what they're good at, what they want to do versus or what they're good at and what they can do versus kind of what they want to do. And so the worst thing someone can do is basically build something that says, hey, I think I can do all this, but I've never really done it before, but I'm going to put this site out there and I'm going to basically tell people that I can do all this great stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to get that first phone call and they've never done it and they don't know how to do it. So it's really important that you understand who you are, what you do, what you're good at, and then you
Mm-hmm.
tell the story accordingly.
No, I agree. I think I learned recently that putting pricing on your website is very much frowned upon, and you will quickly lose accounts. So don't do that, folks. Like, who knew? It blows my mind because there are websites where you can go and you can order and you don't get to see the price until you put it in the cart usually. But isn't that still price? Like, this is what I don't get is how do these places even operate when you can go and buy online? Like, I've lost sales to people being able to find the same product
Sure.
I'm selling online cheaper because they've found a way to get it and sell it. There's no overhead. There's no salespeople. There's somebody in a call center, right? So they can order it up and make it happen and then drop ship it to you, or it comes from a local distribution hub within your area and it gets put on a local delivery company and out it goes. And so I think with what you're saying of like identifying what you can do very well, you've got to go and have some conversations with the partners you have of what am I allowed to do and what aren't I allowed to do. So do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you absolutely hit on the head. I mean, when you're embarking on this exercise, I mean, what's really important is that, to your point, is you understand where you fit in the scheme of things, right? So if you're a retailer and you want to get an online presence and you want to transact online, you got a physical presence, you've got an online presence. Those things are all, and they should be okay, as it relates to most suppliers, kind of supporting that entity because they do it in a lot of different places. I mean, those same suppliers who may frown upon it with a small retailer are allowing for, Home Depot and Lowe's and those guys to put products up online, or they're working with a builder, a Wayfair, et cetera, and they're putting their products up online. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that you can't put pricing online. It really does come down to, you know, is your messaging online matching the brand image of the suppliers you're working with online? And if it is, then they're probably pretty comfortable with you. If it's not, then they're going to get a little bit antsy because they don't really want to see if they view themselves as a high end or a premium line, and they feel like your presence is discount, 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 and that's really not the message they want to tell. They might get a little bit sideways with your presence online and say, hey, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to see that,
Yeah.
or if they've got partners in the marketplace and they've got a map pricing schedule, and that map pricing schedule says we're going to sell things at $10 a square foot online. That's the price you can put up there. And you're out there promoting $650 online because you can take a shorter margin and you're undercutting their map pricing strategy. They'll get sideways with that too. And so you just really do, to your point, need to understand kind of what your partners are and what their online, rules and rules are. And then, but I would also at the same time hold them accountable to make sure that they're being consistent with other people in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So if they say you have to do X, but you've got every other guy out there doing Y, well, then you can kind of have that conversation too to say, hey, look, I appreciate that, and I definitely want to be in compliance with you, but this is what I'm competing with and seeing, and these guys are out of compliance there too. So I just want to compete. So it's just, Kyle, it's conversations, it's dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
it's understanding. But at the end of the day, you have a right to transact on an e-commerce basis, but at the same time, they also as a brand have a right to protect what it is that they want to protect as relates to their image and their position in the market.
Yeah, and it comes down. There's certain brands that are just not going to allow it. Like for a brand specific, I won't name the brand, but in order to even get their digital assets and access to them, you have to sign a contract, and it literally says you cannot put any pricing online. You can say that you have their flooring, and then you have to display it a certain way and have certain logos and do all this stuff, but no pricing whatsoever. Other companies, maybe they're more lenient and you can put something, but once again, maybe there is that the map pricing, as you say, or minimum advertised pricing. So you have to meet something. And I think there is something within this industry to where there's a lot of people that have been involved in it for a long time, especially at the major manufacturers. And if you want to come in and be a disruptor and find a way to run a lower overhead business model that could actually be very profitable with discount flooring sales, it is very, very frowned upon because it's affecting all of these other retailers that decided to have 5,000 square feet, multiple salespeople, installation crews. And, they got the warehouse in the back and they're receiving shipments and they're having to deliver them out and stuff. And there is a way to run very low overhead and run smaller margins and still be just as profitable as these larger operations. But when you want to advertise that, it gets very frowned upon because then the word gets out that, oh, hey, you're over here doing this thing. And then they have a harder time selling at their higher rates, which
Right.
I get why they have to have them. But I also, I didn't choose that business model for you. And so I think that's an interesting mix of it's somebody that's creative and can think outside the box gets punished because they say you can't do that. You have to hold the same margins as everybody else. But why?
Well, it's not necessarily what they're saying, right? I mean, I don't think they're telling you have to maintain the same margins because that's absolutely not the case across the board when you look at how retailers go to market. There are that range of what retailers take in terms of margin is huge. It's I just from my experience, I used to see what seemed to be 30-point swings or more in terms of what some guys would take versus what others would take, and so I don't know that's what they're trying to say. What they're trying to say is publicly, how are you presenting? That and quite frankly, we didn't get too hung up on players that didn't have a national reach or have these really things, but would you'd get hung up on it when someone called you and said, hey, so and so is doing this, and it's really kind of a problem for me. And they were one of your biggest customers, and you'd find this maybe a smaller player who's trying to be a disruptor, and you say, hey, kind of knock it off. We're going to let you do this, but you can't do this, and this. So at the end of the day, what you're trying to accomplish then is how do you get people to draw to, again, know the rules, but how do you get people to still draw the rules and come into it and be like, hey, look, direct buy back in the day was a model that basically didn't take any margin on their products, and that was they were almost, they would almost sell memberships. They would sell memberships to and have people come in knowing that they're going to get almost wholesale +5 or wholesale +10. And they were very, very successful in the marketplace, and companies loved to sell to them, but they didn't advertise price online either. So, and you knew that you understood the membership model. ProSource is another one where, again, they've got a great presence. They sell wholesale to contractors and so forth. They're not a retail outfit,
That's my local one sells it like near retail these days, to be honest.
Right.
But that's
so
they've changed their model a little bit, I think, or
yeah,
maybe it may be operation.
It depends on because those are independently owned. So, when my point is that when then you get into maybe another retailer who's, taking a 60+ point margin because they want to be on the upper end of the scale and they're taking higher end margins. They've got this great service model, et cetera. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. And so margins aren't dictated and prices aren't necessarily dictated. And really they can't be dictated. You can't tell someone really what you can sell something for. That's really not actually even okay. I can tell you what I'm going to sell it to you for, but I really can't tell you what you can sell it for. Okay. So, now, but I can tell you what you can present it online in terms of imagery, and I can have a minimum advertised price conversation in exchange for some other services. So all that said, at the end of the day, if those are the rules you're running into, then it's okay. Well, what's the story that you're going to tell again that says, come work with me because one, I can get you the best direct pricing. Give me a call. You didn't put pricing up there, but you basically told people, I'll work with you on direct pricing. Give me a call, etc. I can also work with you on quality install. Give me a call. So if you want a player in the marketplace that understands your project, is going to handhold it, is going to get you the best pricing I can possibly get you, is going to give you quality installation when you need it, that's a message you can kind of put out there without getting the pricing on there. And then you're going to find players that are going to be like, put whatever price you want up there. I don't care. So then maybe what you do is you lead at times with the items where you've got these partners who say, look, price all you want. I don't care what you price it at. And you lead with those. And then you have those others that says, call me for price. And you can play around, you can mix it up. It doesn't have to be one size fits all. But in the end of the day, what you're trying to do is draw attention to your brand. You're trying to draw attention to your site. You're trying to draw attention to your business. And you're trying to sell, and you're trying to make money. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you're doing it in a way that, one, sort of toes the line, but also finds ways to get your message out while you're doing that in a manner that makes you successful. And you're not beholden to the fact that the brand's saying you can and can't do this, because at the end of the day, it's your business and you need to run it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I think it goes back to, going and having those conversations and figuring out, what can I do? What can I not do? How can you help me? How can you not help me? Right? How can we move your product forward through my business? What is that going to take? What is the messaging that you're looking for? What's the messaging I'm looking for? How do we build this out? It comes down to relationships and then building those out with that partner.
Absolutely. And then look, don't forget too, the fact that if you've got a partner out there and you start selling a lot of their products, and what you're paying them for it is they've set the price for you. So they're not making more or less based on what you're selling, right? Because they've already set your price to them. So as a vendor, they're making the same margins on you because your price is kind of fixed with them, right? But the more you sell of their brand and of their products, and the bigger of a customer you become to them, those conversations sometimes will change a little bit too. They'll be a little bit more accommodating, a little bit more flexible, a little bit more, they'll work with you. But part of it too is, you get these, I remember as a brand, you would get these customers that say, hey, I need you to bend all your rules for me. And then you'd look them up and you'd be like, you've done $3,000 in the last 18 months with me. That doesn't work. I can't bend my rules for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it does size matters as it relates to the customer in terms of pricing and flexibility, et cetera, because you really do want, you do need to kind of protect your own business too as a supplier.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I know that within this online discussion, I know that there's a company out of California that can get a brand that I sell, and their online pricing, like I've had to call and get it. And so they're not putting it online, but the pricing I receive from them is 40, 50 cents above my cost. However, they're big. They have like 20 locations and they're moving containers of this product a month. So were they able to take that discussion back to that distributor and say, we're moving, 50,000 square feet a month. I don't want to pay this anymore. Yeah, that's going to happen, right? So I agree with you.
There's going to be volume discounts in the marketplace.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wherever you're at now, whatever that discussion turns into, I think that's the point, right? Like, just because you visited it once and you had that discussion to get set up, if your business grows, that doesn't mean don't go back and have that discussion again as things continue to change. If you start moving a lot of one product, or at least from a certain, multiple products within a brand, there's probably room for discussion if you start moving containers worth of flooring within a month, if you can do enough sales. Go ahead.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
And listen, and most of the retailers out there I think, have gotten pretty savvy about how to negotiate price, right? So, every brand has their price book, and every customer, wants to figure out a way to negotiate a better price, and they do it in a lot of different formats and ways. But at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to buy something for a price from your supplier that enables you to turn around and mark it up, make the money you need to make, and actually turn it and be competitive. And so, that's up to the retailer to kind of figure out what that model is, and then work with their suppliers to get the best possible price they can get to matches up their thing. And it's a competitive market out there. There's a lot of brands, there's a lot of choice, there's a lot of selections. And as a retailer, they sometimes have to make choices too in terms of who they're going to carry based upon what kind of pricing they can get, and what kind of quality they can achieve, and what kind of products that they can move for the margins that they want to make. So
yeah, no, totally agree. I'm going to interrupt this for 1 minute, and I will jump in with the sponsor stuff, and then we're going to come back, and I want to start kind of moving it a slightly different direction, but still along these lines. It's time to make your plans to travel to Las Vegas with me to hit the show floor at the International Surface event. Our sponsor, Tice, has provided me an incredible offer for you listeners. You can now register for a free exhibits pass with the code KYLE. That's KYLE. Registration is open online at www.intlsurfaceevent.com/register. It's all happening in Las Vegas the 31st of January through the 2nd of February, 2023. Don't miss the special podcast episode this December, which will give you the inside scoop on what's happening at the event. Homeowner tenure is at an 8-year low, with the average length of ownership being 6.31 years. During ongoing times of building material supply constraints, does a 25-year or lifetime warranty on your materials mean anything anymore? Johns Manville Go Board offers a limited 10-year manufacturer warranty on all its products and a list of approved alternative products covered under our warranty. Don't hold up your project because you can't piece together a full system. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. All right. Thanks for hanging out for a second there, Bob.
No worries.
What I want to do is, so one thing that I've noticed that's really helped me recently is I took all of the flooring collections that I offered, went and had my web guy pull all the pictures and actually place them on my website. And so now I have the name of the major brand, the collection name, and then the color names on my website. It's actually boosted the traffic to my site, which is surprising. I know a lot of like retailers will go and white label stuff and they don't want to be able to have people search for it. But what I'm finding is I'm getting calls for people that have an old box of flooring laying around and they either need a repair or they're ready to do an addition onto it, right? They want to do another bedroom or something like that. But then there's also people that are just savvy and they're like, I want to search for this specific floor. Like, this is what I know I want. And then they find me and they're like, oh, well, you can sell it? I'm like, yes, I can. Most people think that you stock it, though. So they expect to be able to come to your store and pick up, 2,000 square feet that day. And I'm like, I can have it in like generally 3 to 5 days, but I'll tell you 5 to 7 to be safe. But I got to make the call, find out if it's back ordered. But just with starting it, though, like, having that presence of not just saying that like, hey, I have a store, here's what I can do. Putting those brands on my website has really helped generate more traffic and garner me more views. Where do we take that from there, though, to really start interacting with these folks and get them more interested in my brand and say, you know, it's okay, you don't have it. I'm willing to wait the 5 to 7 days.
Well, I think that the way you do it is you want to you want to keep people on the site, right? And the way you keep people on the site is you give them more things to look at that would keep them keep searching and looking and digging and getting a sense for it. You know, what you're accomplishing by getting the names, the colors, the brands on your site is you're also capturing a little bit of SEO, you know, natural SEO, because people are searching for that. You've got it up there. You've put it up there recently. You've moved it. It's got activity. And so when they search in your zip code and they're finding you and they find that you've got it online, that's actually going to draw some attention and eyes there. Once you get them there, it's the way you keep them into the site is trying to find, you know, additional room scenes or show them what it looks like installed, different angles of that product. And so there is absolutely a proven best of class when it comes to graphical imagery as it relates to an online presence. And it's usually 3 to 5 images. It's a room scene. You know, I told the story, like, we were looking for, you know, a certain product to go inside this remodel we were doing. And I had a sample of it. My wife just absolutely will not buy off a sample. She has to see it installed. She has to see a room scene of it, because for her, she just can't visualize what that product's going to look like just from a sample and a piece. And so, you know, she'll be like, well, where's a room scene? Can you get a room scene? Can you get a room scene? And so we'll go search and hunt and find the site that's got the room scene of this particular product in that color, showing it in a family room or a kitchen or dining, whatever it is. So that's helpful. And I think people really appreciate that. You know, so I think you can start there, you know, as it relates to kind of what that feels like in terms of that best in class as it relates to imagery. And then people are going to stay on your site a little bit longer. And, you know, if they stay on your site a little bit longer because you've got the better imagery and they feel comfortable with it and they're getting what they want, they're more likely to kind of pick up the phone and call or send you a note or even put something in their cart and try to start selecting items for purchase.
Okay. So, I mean, it's probably definitely worth looking into finding one of these flooring visualizer companies and what's that going to cost me to put it on. And if you can't afford that, right, then go to the websites. And I would assume just start making your own, right? Find what images they have, what digital assets you can use as being a distributor for them, and pull the other shots so you don't just have the generic shot of like, this is what all the different planks look like. And then if you need to, I guess start taking pictures of your room and put in each individual floor, take another picture and send that off to your web guy and just label them so that he can start getting them up. Like I'm with Bob in that having more pictures is going to entertain people longer, but just having the visualizers, I know clients absolutely love the ability to sit there and see what it looks like in a room, even if it is only a close representation. It helps them. A lot of people are bad at visualizing, and so they want to see like, what might this look like? And by giving them that option, you're helping them make a decision that other companies in the area are not, because you now have an offering that they just don't have it. And so who do you want to use? The company that was really helpful to you, or the one that told you they had the product and didn't even say they had the product, they just say they have the brand, you know? Within that,
and then just a real point real quickly to interrupt you there, but the other thing you were talking about in terms of is that promise, that delivery promise. You know, one of the things that's really important is to state that, I think, up front. Most people, believe it or not, are not looking at an item today and thinking they're installing tomorrow. Labor just doesn't work that way unless they're really going last minute. Unless they're really last minute, they're up to the wire. They got a contractor scheduled. They're ripping up floors. They've already ripped up floors, and they got to have inventory on the ground to install it. But hopefully, most people aren't planning their projects that way and being that last minute. But it is helpful if you're searching to know that, hey, I can do it's quick ship, and quick ship for me is, you know, 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5 business days, or this item is special order and it's going to take you 3 to 5 weeks. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So I would say that, part B to, having more imagery is having that service promise kind of embedded into your website and your proposition would be helpful as well. And then the third thing is, descriptive traits and so forth. Make sure that all those descriptive traits, the sizing, the specs, everything is in that, as well as, in there, so people can kind of measure it and compare and contrast, because it's not great. And then as it relates to the visualizer, I love visualizers, but remember, they're only as good as the quality of the imagery you have inside your site that you load into that visualizer. So if you only have one, if you got a product that's got a lot of variation, and you only have one image, that variation is not going to come across in that visualizer. So you need 2 or 3 shots from that supplier to feed that visualizer to give the customer a great representation of what that product is going to look like.
Got it.
So, so that's why I think more content on your site is a great place to start. And then you can feed that content into a visualizer because you've got it already.
Well, with that, just by being able to put more images on your site, I know that on the back end, you don't want to upload, image _ 2032. You want that it's X brand, X collection, X color, and you may even decide to throw in, bathroom remodel and a town near you on it. Because the way the searches work are that it can see the pictures and how they sit on your website. And so all of those words become what the bots crawl for and look at. And then when people are searching that they need a bathroom remodel in Mesa, and you have a bunch of tile on your website and you've got one that says, remodel Mesa, hey, you're going to be more likely to get that hit than someone that doesn't, because they just have, that it's generic tile in Subway 3x6. Help yourself out here and go a little bit extra, put in some extra terms that are going to help draw attention, right? Are you the only certified installer in your area? Find a way to tag that onto some pictures, right? And you can start generating more views and having search terms come up that will help you get more clientele. So,
and also don't forget the fact that you probably grouted, if it's a tile install, you probably grouted that tile install and maybe use Latacrete, and maybe you can tag Latacrete's particular color that you actually did that job. And so now you've got a tile brand, you've got an install in a city, you've got a brand name as it relates to the setting material supplier being marked. You've actually called out a color name in terms of the grout so people can see the contrast. So now all of a sudden you're maximizing all these search terms that are coming out, and you're finding ways to do it. Then I would take that and drop it into social the same way. And I would actually take that same room scene that you've got this great image, and I would pop it up into your social, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, and I would do the same tags, and I'd get everybody kind of embedded into that element, so you can actually build upon this and get people who are looking for a Latacrete install, and they're seeing, or that Latacrete grout color is popping up on your feed. So there's ways to extend that as well when you're actually working with good partners and the details of the job.
Yes, definitely. Don't cheat yourself. Don't let your web person cheat you. Be in communication with them and make sure that you're coming up with a good plan of how you're going to actually reach this. And I know that a lot of installers struggle with this, and they're not super technology oriented. And these are the tips. These are the conversations you need to have. When I send you pictures, what are you doing with them? Well, I just upload them to the site. That's not helping you, right? What are the keywords you're looking for? Are there certain cities or certain subdivisions that you want to be working in? Tag them up with that. That's going to help you, and that's going to get you marketing where you want to be. So we got our website, we've got our stories, we've got our products on there. We're getting the calls. If I wanted to find a way to kind of do a cash and carry, I can deliver thing within my area, what am I looking to have to build out in order to implement that into part of the business? Because I'm only one guy, right? Could I hire somebody? Sure. Do I want to? Maybe it's not, it's easier to hire a company, or where do I start going with that?
So there's a couple ways you can do it, right? Working with your suppliers, your supplier partners. One is some suppliers will allow for pickups at their locations. You can sell
Hmm.
something online and have your customers go to the locations and do a pickup, and you can do your logistics that way. Another way is that you can have stuff delivered to your storefront and have customers come to that storefront and pick it up. If you're not set up and equipped for that, then you're going to have to do a delivery mechanism, and the delivery mechanism is going to hopefully go straight from the supplier to the customer, or straight to you and then to the customer. So you really have to work out those logistical details in terms of what's appropriate in your marketplace. And if you're in a marketplace like a Phoenix that has tons and tons and tons of distributors, and they've got lots of warehouse space, and they've got the ability to kind of help you service that part of the business, then you can do that. If you're in a more remote marketplace, you're going to have to probably manage some of those logistics yourself and have a little bit of space for
Hmm.
people to deliver orders and for people to come in and pick them up, or work with some local carriers that can do a quick LTL into the marketplace. But once you start getting into the delivery business, it's complicated because, the first time you get into that second story apartment complex and you've got four pallets, and you didn't
Hmm.
really figure out how you're going to get it to the second story, or you're going to drop it on the curb and tell them you figured it out. Those are things that you kind of have to work through if you're not a logistics company and you haven't really thought it through, delivering to residential. So it
Yes.
does really pay for you to really think through that logistics model and how it's going to work. And customers are pretty flexible, in terms of today, especially today. And they've got, we've trained them over the last year and a half with all the supply chain issues and challenges to be a little bit more accommodating to delays, or a little bit more accommodating to delivery methods, or when it's going to show up, or et cetera. But at the end of the day, um, if you really can't execute on it, that they won't be forgiving of that. If you can't get it
Yeah.
there. So
Well, I know one of the frustrating things for me was like I had a delivery happen from a major national company, but sure, they're going to deliver it straight to my client's house on a big LTL truck, and they use the lift gate and they get it down and they can get it to the curb, but the I still had to show up because I had to get inside. I I was responsible for taking care of the product. I placed the order. I had to get it where it needed to go. But now the delivery driver's like, oh, I can't show up on time. I'm going to be an hour late. I had already been waiting there an hour because his window. And then he couldn't get the pallet jack to go up the curb. And so it couldn't get into the garage. And so it was like dropped at the end of the driveway. And then I had to move all 100 boxes into the garage. Big deal. At the end of the day, no, not really. Pain, yes. And so when you're mentioning like, what do you do when you end up at a apartment complex and it's got to get to the fourth story? I don't. What do you do? Do you warn these people that hey, it's going to get dropped at your curb and figure it out, or are you finding the company that can go and do that? Are you building a relationship with a local moving company and you can tell them, hey, I have these four pallets. It's 160 boxes. I need you to get it up to the fourth floor, and like however long it takes your guys, right? If it's 110 an hour or something for a moving company, sure, I'll pay the 110 an hour. You got 4 hours, you're out $440 and call it a day. But I think that's a great point of let's look at what's required. Have that conversation. If people are, I would be really wary of allowing people to just schedule purchases on my website without being able to have a conversation with them and follow up of like, what does this look like? Are you in a gated community? Do you need it put in the garage or do you need it brought inside? Like, I would want to offer that end to end service and completely fulfill them. However, within that, I can start piecing together like, okay, what is this going to cost me to happen? And then be able to go to them and say, this is the delivery cost for you. Like just being able to throw on X fee every time would scare me because X fee probably isn't going to cover it 50% of the time or
right.
worse.
Well, the other way you can do it too is if you're going to be material only and you're not going to be the contractor, the installation contractor. Often what will happen is you can get that order placed. You can send that order confirmation to the consumer. you can tell the customer, hey, this is going to be available for pickup at this location. Maybe it's the supplier at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, the contractor who's going to do the install can take over and do the pickup and the installation. And so you just have to understand what your customers are dealing with. If they're a do-it-yourselfer and they're going to do it and they're going to do it, then then you have to work out this. Well, I can get it delivered to you, but it's going to cost X to get it delivered, or you can come and pick it up and you can bring it upstairs. So you just have to kind of work that all out. But a lot often, if you're just doing material only, there's someone on the other side there doing the installation, and very often that party can be involved in both the pickup and the delivery of that material. Because they're heading to the job site with all their tools and their equipment and the things that they need to do, and they probably got a helper with them, and so they're going to be able to kind of get that to where it needs to go, and that often works out real well, especially if you've got people who can actually help you with the logistics in terms of where the pickup points are. But it really is a point of conversation that actually has to have some flexibility in it, unless you've got a really good local LTL carrier that you contracted with that says, absolutely, I'm going to pick it up at X, I'm going to deliver it to Y. Absolutely white glove. We're going to take it all the way into the consumer's home. Not a problem. And you work out that logistics, which is probably the best scenario in a small market.
Yeah. I know that's hard to do with probably some of the LTL carriers. They're like, nope, once we pass the threshold, like there's liability issues. So you're going to have to find a really good company to work with, which is where I was thinking, a small local moving company might be the better option if they have something with a lift gate, as opposed to trying to use an LTL carrier, which is unconventional, but I think would probably be able to pull it off. They're in and out of people's houses moving stuff all day. So as long as their guys are making their rate, I don't know what they would care what they're picking up and delivering.
They don't. But again, the bottom line is if you, because you can talk about the scenarios all day, right? Is that you just have to have a plan, and you just can't leave it to happen. You just can't take that first order and go, gosh, I don't know how I'm delivering this. Yeah. And so the bottom line is when you set this up and you do a cash and carry and you take an order online, you just have to know what your process is all the way through to the end. And you have it established before you put that first site up and say, hey, start buying from me. And if you cover that, then you're great. If you don't, you're gonna learn the hard way very quickly that it's going to take a lot of time and energy and effort to figure out how to deliver these things, and probably be a little bit counterproductive to what you're really intending it to be.
Which is that's great advice in general, right? You don't just go out and open up a restaurant or any kind of business and say, I'll just wait to get the order and figure it out from there. Like, you got to have the plan in place, right? The restaurant has a menu, and then you know what ingredients you had to purchase up front so that you would be able to make the meal that was ordered. You're not going to okay, I'll be back. I got to run to the store because I didn't know you were going to order chicken, and now I got to go buy chicken and then start putting it together. Well, 3 hours later, maybe I'm getting a meal. Whereas if you would have had everything planned out, you can start putting it together much faster. So I think that's great advice just in general. Like, you need to have that game plan of, if I'm going to offer this service, how do I work it through? And maybe you miss something, but I'd rather miss one thing than 10 things.
And the reason why it's so critical in this category is because of the weight. If you're selling small items, you don't have to worry about this. You just set up an account with UPS. You put your delivery fees online. You take the order, you ship the order, and UPS handles it for you. It's not a big deal. But when you're talking about heavy weighted stuff that really does take a little bit more attention to it, that's really why it matters, right? Because it's these things. Pallets can weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and sometimes they require large trucks, and sometimes those large trucks can't get into the small areas that they're trying to deliver to. This happened to me just last week. I had to have a bathtub delivered. The bathtub showed up in a massive truck that could not fit into the area where it was actually trying to go. So the driver turned around and went home, didn't deliver the tub. And you're like, well, now what?
Yeah.
Well, we have to come back. Well, we're going to have to come back with a smaller truck. Okay, so, missed delivery, it's fine. They'll come back next week. But at the end of the day, those types of details are, they're going to cost somebody money.
Yes, for sure. And I think it's important to know what's going on, right? I agree. Within this, I know in our previous conversation we had, we were talking about where could you sell? And so myself, if I were going to look at expanding this, although the distribution partners I have locations throughout California and the Northwest and probably, I believe in Nevada and Colorado. Like there's some spread out stuff. Could I look at selling in other areas? Yes. Does that get iffy to me? A little bit, because I'm not as familiar with that area. But I believe per a conversation when you were at Emser, you had people start selling like nationwide, and it kind of got stopped fairly quickly just because that's not the way the model's supposed to work.
Yeah, if you're a local guy, if you're a local retailer and you've got one location in Phoenix, Arizona, and you want to sell in, Denver, Colorado, and you want to open up and take orders from there, your real option is to ship from Phoenix and ship it up through into Denver. Because the idea that you're going to leverage somebody else's infrastructure and their logistics and then take an order in Phoenix and have them do a pickup in Colorado will work in some scenarios, but it won't work in all scenarios and with all vendors. And so you just have to understand who would allow that and who won't allow that. When we were at Emser, for a long time, we didn't want that because we didn't want somebody setting up shop in a basement, putting an online presence out there, undercutting the marketplace, and then utilizing, maybe, from their basement, in Nevada, and then selling into the Northeast or into Virginia, and basically undercutting the marketplace there, and then having customers pick up in our locations there. It just wasn't the best model for us at the time, and so we actually had to kind of really work those to make sure that they weren't taking place. But we always tell people, if you want to ship, you can ship across the country if that's what you want to do. Charge the rate and so forth, but you just can't use our logistical model to do it. Other suppliers will be like, look, I've got RDCs, these regional distribution centers. I'm okay with you picking up there. It's fine. You can place an order, and we've got locations all over the place, and we'll allow those customers to come into that regional distribution center and pick up. Not a big deal. It just depends on the brand, the company, and kind of how their logistics are set up and what they're willing to allow and not allow. Not everybody had the model of Emser or Tile where they had multiple locations across the country. They just had these regional distribution centers. So it just depends on the brand and what they're going to enable you to do. But it definitely becomes more complicated because you got to get eyeballs in those marketplaces and people looking at it. So then you have to talk about the conversation about, well, how do I even get someone in Denver, Colorado to look at my website where I don't really have a presence there? And so that becomes a whole nother animal that you've got to kind of tackle and to make sure you can get national eyes on it.
I mean, besides that, I would be worried about just the transaction privilege taxes, right? So now I'm dealing with out-of-state taxes, and I've got to file over here and over there, and how and who and when, and learn your system really, really well before. Like, that's what I wouldn't just jump into it. I would learn my system really, really well and figure out a way to service the greater Phoenix area or all of Arizona before I jumped into like, oh, okay, let me try and go get some business in California or Washington. And I don't even have eyes on anything. That's a very scary prospect of how do I deal with that? How do I incorporate that activity? I mean, I can hire somebody to build a back end into the website and probably automatically do a lot of it, but
and what's going to happen is someone's going to stumble upon you at some point in time as you develop and you grow. You're going to get a customer that's going to stumble upon you and be like, I live in Las Vegas. I live in Henderson. Can you deliver me an order in Henderson? And then it's up to you to kind of decide, am I going to take that on at this point in time, or can I not service it? But they're going to stumble upon you. They're going to look at your site. They're going to pick up the phone and call you and say, what's pricing you've got on this? They're going to like your pricing. And they're going to say, can you ship it to Henderson? And you're going to say, let me figure that out. Let me see if I can. And so, you're going to go from there. But I agree with you. Expand the market that you're in, own the area that you're in, find what your comfort reach is, build your logistical network as you go. And then as you continue to get more comfortable with it, you can kind of expand that reach and territory, unless you really want to go big and start going national and really work out. And there's a lot of companies that are national. There are websites that are national that do a great job with it, but they're huge, they're massive, they got billions of dollars worth of revenue coming through, and they've got logistical models set up.
Yeah.
So
there are some big websites out there to contend with, but I don't know that if you can set up your website right, you're going to draw in that traffic, because there's a lot of times that I can put in keywords for floors that I may be looking for a client, and those websites come up. But like I said, one thing that's really helped me recently is me having those same keywords, and the fact that I'm a local business in that area, I'm showing up before they do, and I'm getting the phone call instead of these national e-retailers, and that's a that's a better fit. It's a better buy, right? When you buy local, I think the statistic is something like 90% of the money stays within that community versus when you buy from like a national company, it's only like 40%. It might even be less than that. But that's if you can get your local company to show up and people to work with you, and maybe you do need to be a little bit more expensive than the e-retailer, but I guarantee you can probably offer a higher level of service that's more accommodating to these folks. When they're ordering 2,000 square feet and you're 10 cents higher, that $200, it's negligible in my opinion when you have the right offer.
So on that note, then we talked about this, I think once before, is that the idea of having that local service, right? So if you're a local player and you've got a web presence and you've got this, and you maybe have a retail storefront, the best thing you can do, I think, as a small player in a local market is create that interaction with that customer. That's a personal interaction with the customer. So you get an order, someone picks up the phone and they call and they can confirm that order. There's some kind of personal touch point. You can build that into a model as a small player. You can have your automated kind of responses. You can do the things that the website does where it gives you updates and so forth. But to be honest with you, having the accessibility of that business when you're online to ask questions, interact, etc., is a difference maker a lot of the times as it relates to buying something online and having that personal connection. Because once you create that personal connection and you've got to go and do the next order, you almost sometimes will bypass the website and you'll call that individual and be like, hey, I'm looking for this, and be like, super, go to the website, pick it out, put it in your cart, we'll take care of it. But as a smaller localized player, finding a way to blend a web presence that's automated, gets eyeballs on, gets people into your shop, gets people thinking about your brand, purchasing with you, and adding in a layer of personal connectivity can go a really long way in terms of building a following for people who actually just like the fact that they've got a guy or they've got a person, they've got an individual that they can call to satisfy this need for now and for the future.
100% agree. Relationships go way further than anything else, right? That's what it's all about, is being able to build that relationship to where you're the guy that can solve every problem. And I've said it before on the podcast, like, I don't care what my client's looking for, whether it's, a financial planner, an electrician, or some other kind of contractor, a restaurant. Like, I'd prefer that they think of me first, and I want to have the answer. Because if they're thinking about me as the guy, then I'm always on their mind, top of mind. And I know that means when they hear the word floor, they're like, I got a guy. In fact, I don't care what you need from him. Just call him. He's always got the guy, and they're all reliable, right? And that's having relationships and partnerships is more important than anything else in business, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
All right, Bob, is there anything we didn't touch on that you think needs to be covered within this topic?
I guess just a conclusion, what I would tell people is that, listen, if you really want to create an online presence, you don't have one today. Just reiterating the fact that just have a game plan of a purpose. Make sure you map out what it is you're trying to accomplish with your storytelling. Set that up. Know how you're going to pull things through as it relates to logistics. And more importantly, just have that, when you build it, have that call to action. What is it you're trying to get people to do once they get in front of you? And then finally, it's not just the website. Make sure that it's everything that you're doing is tying together. Your retail presence, your website presence, your social presence. Make sure that they're all somehow connected, because that's how you're going to get expanded views and looks and brand presence, is to make sure that everything you do and say, you say it the same way, you say it consistently, and you say it often, and you repeat it, so that people have a chance to kind of catch the message, because you won't catch them with a single message. You need a message over and over and over and over, and you got lots of mediums you can do that with, and make sure that you basically continue to tell that messaging until you get the type of following and traction that you want.
Love it. Consistency. That's what it comes down to. That's where a lot of people fail, is they'll start doing something, they gain a little bit of traction, and it falls apart. In the flooring realm, I see a lot of contractors that are like, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do anything except just go do the work. And then they're super busy for 3 or 4 months because they got so booked out. And then there's a lull because they stopped advertising and marketing and doing anything to drum up new business because they were so busy. They thought it was just going to carry on, and it doesn't. And so then they have to go put all their time and effort into marketing and advertising again. They get booked out for 3 or 4 months and they're too busy to do anything else. Consistency. Once you start doing something, you got to keep doing it, and it's going to take a while, but then the snowball will grow and you will be good to go. Awesome. Well, I thank you for joining us. Thank you for your insights, Bob. I really appreciate them. Always love chatting with you. And anybody can go to flooracademypod.com, go and check out all the links to wherever the podcast is available: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you want to listen to a podcast, we're over there. You can check us out on YouTube, follow us on Instagram or TikTok. You can help support the show at patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even a couple bucks a month goes a long way in helping the content to continue to get produced. Thank you to the sponsors. And if you want to be super cool, you can head on over to the website, go to the shop, and you can pick up a really cool "Profit is Not a Dirty Word" t-shirt or hoodie. Those are fun. Go wear those around, not in front of clients. They may not like that, but around your friends, that's a good thing. I think that's going to do it for us this week. Remember to learn while you earn.